Hey, what's up? Hello. If you're new here, my name is Kayla and you are watching Kayla's Bookish Vibes. Today's video is going to be a taste test of a specific author. There are a few authors that I have quite a few books from that I just haven't read anything from them yet. So I wanted to start incorporating them into videos for my channel where I just do a taste test where I read a few of their books to decide, is this an author that I enjoy? Will I continue buying their books? And honestly, my hope is to find a few auto-buy authors from these types of videos. So the first author that I'm going to do a taste test for is Tiffany D Jackson. Now, I have quite a few of her books on my shelf and I have not read one single book by Miss Tiffany D Jackson at all, but I have heard nothing but amazing things. Everyone who reads her books really enjoys them. I believe they are all YA and they're all in the thriller genre. I believe they're all considered thrillers. So I thought, why not give them a chance? It'll be exciting to do. So the first one that I have already started to read is Monday's Not Coming. I would say I'm about 30% through with this book. My initial thoughts. So we are following a young lady named Claudia. Claudia's best friend's name is Monday, hence the reason the book is called Monday is Not Coming. Claudia returns home from summer break where she spends her summers in Georgia with her grandparents, and she returns home looking for her best friend, Monday. But Monday is nowhere to be found, and no one can quite tell her when they last seen her. The thing about it though is no one's looking for Monday. And right now I could tell you, like, this book is going to break my heart, but no one, not the teachers, not her parents, not Claudia's parents, outside of Claudia, Monday doesn't really have any other friends, but no one is looking for Monday except Claudia. And it seems that Claudia is really the only one who notices that she's even missing. Parts where it's talking about like what happened before Monday went missing, and it's just kind of building up the friendship and showing you how Claudia and Monday are so close. And then there are things that we see that happened after Monday has gone missing. And that's really just showing Claudia navigating life without her best friend, navigating life trying to find her best friend. She's really worried and things, you know, this is a trauma that's happening to her and she's trying to deal with it as a child. This is being handled in a way that I would think a child would handle this situation. It's heartbreaking and it's definitely, I could tell, going to be a bit heavy. It does read more like a mystery, less of a thriller, so I would consider this more of a mystery. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts on this book. Once I get a little bit more into the story, I will come back and give you all an update. But for the other books that we will also be reading in today's video, we are also going to be reading Grown and Allegedly by Tiffany D Jackson. Both of these, I am reading this one now though, and I'm going to go ahead and complete it probably today, honestly, because the way I'm able to like just sit and zone into this book and really dive in, trying to figure out what happened to Monday, I'm interested, like very interested, and I can definitely see this being a one-day read. There are 435 pages in this book, which I would say is pretty long to be reading in one sitting. But the way it's written, it's very easy to read, very easy to flow through, and I'm just interested. I did it. I finished Monday's Not Coming. I really wanted to read this book in like 1 to 2 sittings, but I did have to. I found that I had to step away. Sorry, I'm a little sick. Ooh, I love it. Currently making comic book strips. I did have to step away. I ended up having to just like decompress from this book before I came back and gave my final thoughts. I did enjoy the book. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. This book was very heavy, but we'll talk about the things that I loved. I loved the go-go reference that came up quite a few times in this book. This does take place in Washington, D.C., or like a surrounding area. So if you're at all familiar with Washington, D.C., then you know that go-go music is part of the like culture there. So I really enjoyed them mentioning go-go music and just bringing that up, because that was like a bright spot in the book, and this book could definitely take all the bright spots it could possibly get. I think I already gave a brief synopsis of this book, but from where I left off, we found out what happened to Monday, and it was heartbreaking. It was I think it was so heartbreaking because it was also so realistic, and the things that take place in this book happen in real life. You know, it's not just like a fictional, outlandish story thriller, but it's like something that can and something that does actually happen. And I think that's what really was dragging me and my mood down. I literally cried real tears reading this book. I had to pluck myself out of it, if that makes sense. I had to pluck myself out of this book and plop myself back in the real world. We ended up taking our boys to go see Kung Fu Panda 4, and that was a really good escape from this book. I just had to like release myself from this book, if that makes sense. It had a hold on me. But Tiffany D Jackson knows how to pen a good YA story. I think it was really believable. Sometimes I feel like YA stories, like the dialect between characters, can be really cringy, and it's like kids don't talk like that. But in this book, I feel like it was very believable. Kids do actually talk like this, and I felt like I was in the head of a teenage girl who was going through a very traumatic experience, who was severely worried about her best friend, and who felt like she just wasn't being listened to because she wasn't being listened to. So really enjoyed this book. It was very heavy. I'm definitely gonna need a break from Tiffany D Jackson right now. I'm gonna start probably a romance here in a little while, but I actually highly recommend. I would recommend this book more so for the adults in the lives of children. So I would recommend this for coaches, for parents, for librarians, for mentors, like as well as the children. But I think the adults would benefit from this book more than the actual kids would. So even if you're not into YA, you don't necessarily like to read YA, I think you would still really enjoy this book. You'll get something out of this book is what I'm trying to say. So I do highly recommend. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. So far Tiffany D Jackson is a winner in my book. I guess we'll continue on with the next book. I don't know if I'm going to read Allegedly or Grow next, but you'll find out in the next clip. Guess what? I started and finished a book and never, not once, gave you my thoughts on it, like not even a little bit. So I started and finished Allegedly by Tiffany D Jackson, and I never gave you my initial thoughts. I never gave you my final thoughts because I read this book on audio while I was braiding my hair. Listen, Linda, this book, okay, let me give you I'm gonna give you a brief synopsis and I'll give you my thoughts. I'll try to put my thoughts into words with this book. I want to say first we're following Mary. Her name is Mary Addison, I think, and she's only like 15 years old. So Mary is 15 years old, but when she was like 9 years old, she was convicted of killing a baby. So she was sent to what she called like baby jail, I believe, or I'm pretty sure she called it baby jail in the book. She's now 15 years old, so she's like been released from baby jail and she's now in like a group home. So we follow Mary through her life and like her everyday life in the group home. We follow like the other kids that live in the group home with her, as well as like the adults that are in charge of the group home. So we're getting like glimpses of her everyday life and the interactions that she has with these people, which obviously are not pleasant. These are not pleasant experiences. I believe they're in New York. We do find out like very early on in the book, I don't believe this is a spoiler, that Mary is pregnant. So because she is pregnant, she has been convicted of killing a baby when she was just a young child. The state has to decide if she can actually keep her baby. And she's trying really hard to keep her baby. So she's trying to do what she thinks will help her do that, will help the state see, you know, that she's trying to change her life. So she's going to school. She's actually very bright. She's very smart, and she wants to take her SAT and go to college. So that's like another aspect that we follow her in the trials and like things that get in her way as she tries to improve her life. This book is considered YA, but books like this make me ask, what is YA? Like, what deems a book YA? What are the qualifications for a book to be considered YA? Is this book YA because Mary is 15/16? She does have a birthday in the book, but is this considered YA because she's 15 or 16 years old? Is that the only qualification? Because this does not read like a YA book. This just reads like a psychological thriller. This could very much be an adult psychological thriller. So I'm kind of grappling with the fact that this is considered YA. It does not read like YA. If you're someone who doesn't like YA but loves psychological thrillers, you would love this book, okay? So don't let the fact that it's YA stop you from picking it up. I will say we flip back and forth. So like I said, she was convicted of killing a baby when she was just 9. So we get, like, obviously we have present day where she's, like I said, we're going through like her everyday life, but we also get snippets of like reports that were being taken or like that took place when the incident happened when she was 9. So we have like interviews of her when it happened, interviews of people that were there for the situation, like when it went down. And I found that to be quite interesting, but they weren't as intriguing as present day. Okay, so I feel like we honestly could have done without some of those bits, but they do not take away from the story at all. They also just didn't like add anything interesting, in my opinion, to the story. I think I had this to say about Monday's Not Coming. You can always tell when someone is like writing from a point of view where they've just like grown up in this environment. They didn't have to like do research to write in a certain way. And I think Tiffany D Jackson does an amazing job at writing Black kids, at writing kids of color at a certain age, because it doesn't seem cringy or corny when we're inside these kids' heads when they have like dialogue or they're talking to each other. It's not unrealistic. As someone who was once a Black kid, and as someone who knows a lot of Black kids and even Latino kids, like, this is how they talk to each other, talk amongst themselves, talk in general. And I really appreciate that. Sometimes I feel like dialogue for younger people in YA can be a bit cringy, right? Because it's usually coming from an adult's mind, and it's like, that's not really how they talk. Granted, I wouldn't say this is like Gen Z talking. I would definitely say that this is like millennial kids talking. I really appreciate that, and I can just kind of tell that Tiffany D Jackson writes from a place of experience and not of like an outsider looking in. The parts that made me so upset was, and I'm going to try my best to do this without giving spoilers, but Mary wanted to improve her situation. She wanted to improve her life, and I felt like the adults in her life who were literally, it was their job to help her improve her life, were the main ones stopping her or getting in her way or even trying to discourage her from doing so. It was infuriating. Obviously the system is infuriating, and the lack of checks and balances within the system was infuriating. The twist in this book, the twist at the end of this book, I have to tell you, I did not see coming, even though after I read the twist, I really felt like I should have seen that coming, but I didn't. It was so well placed, perfectly executed. The writing in this book, in my opinion, was absolutely superb. If you enjoyed the book, I think it's called Everyone Here is Lying. I forget the author of that book, but I'll put it on the screen here. If you enjoyed that book, and if you also enjoyed a book by, I think her name was Lucinda Berry. I can't remember the book. I can see the cover in my head clear as day, but I'll put it here on the screen. If you enjoyed these two books, you need to read this book, because I believe this book was written better, and the twist was chef's kiss. Like 10 out of 10. Highly recommend this book. This was a 5-star, if you can't tell. This was a 5-star. It evoked so much emotion, confusion, which is hard for me to be confused in a thriller. I typically always guess things and I always like figure things out. This, I'm just like, you really got me. And it's hard to get me, but she really got me in this book. Anger just at the situation at hand. I don't want to say too much, but this book infuriated me. This book evoked compassion. I really feel like Tiffany D Jackson wasn't afraid to push the limits in this book. Sometimes when it's YA, you can tell that they have to like reel it in. She did not reel anything in with this book. She went full throttle, like pedal to the metal, no brakes. Okay? Loved it. I really apologize for not being able to like give you guys an initial thought and then coming to you like in the middle of the book and just coming to you when I've completed the book. But like I said, I listened to this on audio while I was braiding my hair, so it was just one long day for me. I think this was like an 8-9 hour book on audio. If you are into audiobooks, highly recommend the audio. It was a great audiobook experience. But this is a book I will reread. Just because now that I know the twist, now I want to reread the book so that I can like pinpoint and nitpick all the things that I missed the first time. Highly recommend. We gave Monday's Not Coming 4 stars. We have one more book to read by Tiffany D Jackson. And if the first 2 books are any indication of what I can expect from Grown, it's probably going to be another 4 or 5 star. Honestly, 2 out of 3, even if the third book is just like not hitting at all, like it misses the mark completely, 2 out of 3 still indicates that I will be buying whatever Tiffany D Jackson releases next. I did look on Goodreads to see if she has like a date for her next released book, and it does say on Goodreads that she'll have a book come out in 2025. So whatever that book is, I'll be getting it because these first 2 books didn't miss. And I have to be honest, I have never seen a negative review for a Tiffany D Jackson book at all. So I will try to do better when recording for Grown. I do plan to read that one physically. I'll try to give you all my initial thoughts on that one and do better with that book. But shout out to Tiffany D Jackson for getting me through my braids. Folks, I have thoughts. So we are about 30%, I would say about 30% through this book. Okay, we have read this much and we've officially completed part 1, and we are now on part 2. This is probably, actually I know it's not probably, it absolutely is going to be my least favorite book of the 3. I'm not going to like this book nearly as much. I feel like the writing is different. It's not as compelling or interesting. I feel like the dialect between the characters, again, this is YA, so like they're 16, 17. The dialect between them isn't as natural, isn't as believable. And I think that has a lot to do with some of the characters being Caucasian. The topic being discussed is not my favorite. It's actually my least favorite. I don't want to call it a trope. I'm just going to call it the subject of the book. Essentially, we are following Enchanted. Enchanted is a 17-year-old girl who goes to a private school and she's on the swim team. She's really good at swimming. Like, she's really good at it. And she's also really good at singing, but she has a passion for singing and she wants to be a professional singer one day. Like, she's really good at it. So one day she talks her mom into taking her to a singing competition. She doesn't win the singing competition, but there she meets a man named Corey with a K. Corey with a K is 28 years old, and he takes a special liking to Enchanted. And honestly, trigger warning, we essentially, for the first 30% of this book, we are watching Corey groom Enchanted. You can tell it's being set up. Tiffany even leaves some little breadcrumbs, little like direct hints that this is what's happening. Like, this is a grown man, almost 30 years old, grooming a 17-year-old girl because he is in the music industry. He is like super famous, millions of followers, has an awards, all of that. Like, he is a celebrity. I think they said he was like an E short of an EGOT. Like, he's really famous, and he is taking a liking to Enchanted. I will say that this, I feel like I'm watching, or I feel like I'm reading Surviving R. Kelly. That's the vibes it's giving. It's giving R. Kelly vibes. And listen to me when I say I'm trying so hard not to DNF this book, because I'm hoping that something else happens in this plot, or that like the twist in it, or like the plot twist is just going to save the book. But I'm not hopeful, because I had those same thoughts when I read The Teacher by Frida McFadden. The entire time I'm reading the book, I'm like, I really hope this isn't just purely a book about a man grooming a student. Hopefully this twist will save it. And the twist did not save it. It was literally just a book, reading a book about a man grooming a student. And I don't find that entertaining. I don't find that thrilling. I find it disgusting, personally. And I feel like I'm going down the same road with this book. and I don't like it. I'm not gonna DNF because I'm 30% in, and at this point I'm really hoping that the twist saves this book. But if it doesn't, then I know now that I will never pick up another book that is about like grooming or that has that subject. I don't want to call it a trope because I feel like a trope isn't the correct word for that. That's just not something that I enjoy. I don't find that entertaining. I don't want to read about it. I just don't. Not in my free time, in my spare time. That's not something I want to read about. And I don't consider myself like an overly sensitive person. It's just this specific thing really icks me. Like, it gives me major ick and I cannot overcome it. It has like all the major markings of a man who is grooming. He's controlling her. He's having her lie to her friends, lie to her family. She's impressionable because she's young. It's all there. I guess that's my update for 30%. And then I will give you all my final thoughts. I don't think I'm going to give like another update until I've just completed the book. Had I known that this is what this book was about, I would have read White Smoke instead. But it's fine. I'm just trying to read books that are on my shelf. So I'm reading from my physical TBR. And after I finish this book, I know that this is one that I can unhaul. I have finally finished Grown by Tiffany D Jackson. This is the third and final book for this video. And I'm pretty sure I gave you guys my initial thoughts, and I'm here to give you my ending thoughts on Grown. So first, I'm probably going to backtrack a little bit. I honestly don't remember what the last clip said, but I had to look at this book from a different lens. I think previously I was comparing it to The Teacher. The Teacher is not a YA thriller. It is an adult thriller. This is a YA. I think it's considered a thriller. I wouldn't consider this a thriller. The Teacher was trying to do something completely different than what this is doing. Okay? So don't get it twisted. If you disliked The Teacher, probably for the same reasons that I did, this is not that. Okay? So I wanted to clarify that. Now, let's talk about some of the things, not necessarily that I disliked, but just like small things that annoyed me a little bit, right? Beyonce was mentioned way too many times in this book for my liking. And I am a Beyonce stan. If you know, you know. Like, literally my Kindle's name is Kayonce. I'm that type of Beyonce fan, okay? But she was mentioned too many times in this book and it was annoying me. I was like, let's just not mention her in this book. Well, Enchanted is in a group, or like a social group called the Will and Willow group, which I'm assuming is supposed to be like the Jack and Jill group, which is literally just like upper middle class to like upper class kids get together, and it's just like a social group, you know, for people, typically people who have a little shmoney, okay? They get their kids together to socialize and to do activities within the community. Well, the Will and Willow group is that for Enchanted. There are parts in this book where we are in like the group chat of the teenagers that are in this group. Sometimes Enchanted and her sister, the Jones sisters, are in this group chat. And then actually I think they were only in the group chat one time. And then the rest of the group chat is the group chat talking pretty much about Enchanted. Now, I'm not going to say that annoyed me. The group chat portions I thought were actually pretty interesting. But what annoyed me is that the group is called the Will and Willows instead of Jack and Jill. I don't know why that annoyed me, but it was just like, really? But I did enjoy those sections where they were in the group chat because that is definitely how kids will do. Those kids were shady, okay? They were so shady, so annoying. There were times where they were just callous and it had no compassion. She rectified the situation, okay? So those were like some small things that annoyed me. Now let's get into my true thoughts on this book. I had to look at this book from a different lens because it is YA. So I had to realize I'm an adult. I am not the intended or target audience for this book. So you have to read it as if you were the intended or target audience, right? So when I switched my lens and realized that this is a book meant for young adults, I began to not enjoy it more, but I began to understand it more. I began to understand where Tiffany was going and why she did the things that she did with this book. In the author's note, she said that this book is not about R. Kelly. Obviously, this book was used R. Kelly as a influence. It used R. Kelly in his horrific deeds and tales. Like, it used that as like a basis. But I understood what she meant when she said it's not about R. Kelly, because she's not trying to focus on the perpetrator. She's focusing on the victims, is pretty much what I'm gathering from her author's note. However, this was heavily influenced by R. Kelly. So go into it knowing that. Our main character, Enchanted, is a young adult, and she continued to make very young adult decisions. It wasn't until I realized she has a best friend named Gab in this book. And she kept saying that Gab always had her life together. Mind you, her and Gab are the same age. Gab works at the Old Navy, or I think she works at Gap. It was either Old Navy or Gap in the mall. She has a little hoopty-doopty that she pays for, but she has to work at the mall to pay for it. And she works a lot at the mall because they don't pay anything at the mall. And she has a boyfriend that's in college. And she just thinks Gab has her life together. And in my mind, I think that goes to show you how young of an adult that she is. That she thinks that this young lady who was working at the Old Navy and has a college boyfriend and a car, like, that's what it takes to have your life together. That just goes to show like her mindset and how grown she really is. The ending of this book was very over the top, very dramatic, and it ended in a very Tiffany D Jackson way. I think because I read these 3 books in succession, like pretty much close together, I've obviously noticed a pattern in the endings of her books, and she ends them in a very specific way. So the ending I wasn't shocked by, because obviously I've read 2 endings of 2 different books, but they were not similar because obviously like the subject and plot of each book is different. But the ending just kind of, I felt coming. Like, I knew that the ending was going to be exactly what it was, to be quite honest. So I wasn't shocked by the ending, which is okay. That's okay. I feel like this book, like I said, was much more than a thriller. And I think the ending she put there to give that last thrilling aspect, because this book to me doesn't read like a thriller. It reads like it has something to say. You know, this book is commentary pretty much, but in a fictional way that also gives you a story. So I wouldn't consider this a thriller, but Goodreads considers it a thriller. So do with that what you will. A star rating for this book, I'm going to give it a solid 3.5. A solid 3.5. That's what I landed at, and I'm happy with that. And of course I will be reading more by Tiffany because she pens a really good story, and I love her target audience. I think she has a heart for her target audience, and I have a heart as well for her target audience. So I will always read what Tiffany D Jackson has to say. I would love for Tiffany to pen a story on Carly Russell. If you know, you know who Carly Russell is. I would love for her to write a story loosely based off of that situation. Obviously, Tiffany likes to write young adults, so she would have to make our character much younger. I believe Carly was like in her mid-20s. Is in her mid-20s. I would love to see Tiffany do something with that story in YA. I think she would do an amazing job at penning something that is loosely based off of Carly Russell. Also, random, but as I was reading this book, I was like, I would also really love to see Tiffany D Jackson, Elizabeth Acevedo, and Jason Reynolds write like a series of short stories together. I think that would be so dope. And I'm putting that out there so that hopefully it'll come back to me. I think that would be really good. If you've read any YA from those 3 authors, then you know they would do really good to write a series of short stories that don't even have to necessarily interconnect. It can be just like a series of short stories, but to do it together in one binding would be, I think, amazing. So let me get the rest of Tiffany's books to rate these and like put them in order from my favorite, from my least favorite to my favorite. Grown is my least favorite. Then would be Monday's Not Coming. And finally would be Allegedly. Allegedly, I believe, was her first novel, and she did her thing with this book. I loved this book. I believe I gave this 5 stars. If I didn't give it 5 stars, I'm bumping it up to 5 stars because I haven't stopped thinking about this book since I read it. And I'm going to reread this book. I have plans to reread this book. This book I really enjoyed. I want to say I gave it a 4. Would I reread? I think I would reread this book for sure. I'm definitely going to keep it. I would reread this one. This one, 3.5. I'm not rereading this book. I probably will never recommend it to anyone, but these two books will definitely be recommended, especially Allegedly. I loved this book. So those are my thoughts on Tiffany D Jackson. Has she become an auto-buy author for me? Yes, this little experiment has shown me that Tiffany D Jackson is now an auto-buy author for me. I do believe she has a book releasing in 2025, so I will be keeping my eye out for that and checking her Goodreads every now and then to see if any updates pop up. But yes, I am now a fan of Miss Jackson. If you have made it to the end of today's video, I really appreciate it. If you have read any of Tiffany D Jackson's books, please leave your comments down below on which book was your favorite. I do have her 2 other books back here, White Smoke and Let Me Hear a Rhyme. So I do plan on reading these eventually. But if you have read Tiffany D Jackson's catalog, please let me know which one was your favorite. I have a feeling most people are going to say Allegedly because that book was so good. But I haven't read these 2 books, so I don't know which is the best. If you've read her books, let me know your favorite. Comment down below. Leave this emoji to let me know that you made it to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.